All right, so we're back. This is the third part of the third block. It's a fairly short part, and I just wanted to talk to you some about some learning skills, if you will. And the three I want to talk about really are how we read in engineering in terms of textbooks, how we take notes, and how we question in class. So three little things. But as part of this, I want to talk a little bit about some introduction materials, and in particular, a couple different philosophies of how you get through engineering school, how you're going to learn. The philosophy that your textbook talks about, and I think it's a pretty good one, the author simply says you got to work hard, right? Work smart, and think positively. And I actually think that's pretty good. I did not spend years reading your textbook. I read it fairly recently. And basically what the author is getting at is it's going to take effort. Engineering school means you're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to put some effort. Your approach has to be good. And hopefully during this lesson we've talked a little bit about your approach to learning. And your attitude has to be good. And the reason I said, well, I didn't spend years reading your textbook is my approach to this, what I've been telling students for years and years, so sort of the Dr. M approach is you either got to have horsepower or brain power. That's sort of what I've always said is horsepower, brain power, and if we want to add in, you got to have a good attitude regardless. Anyone with those things, horsepower or brain power, really, either you work hard and you put in a lot of effort, or your approach is really good and you're working really smart. Ideally, we want a combination of the two. And you got to have a good attitude. And I've been telling students that for a decade. Horsepower, brain power, and a good attitude. So as we talk about reading, taking notes, and questioning, I'm going to start with reading. So when we talk about reading for engineering, I'm going to talk about what to do before, during, and after. I'm going to break my comments down in that way. So before, during, and after. And I don't want to get real lengthy as I talk about reading textbooks and that sort of thing. But before you read, if you get a reading assignment, you want to know why you're reading, and basically survey the material. In other words, page 2, see what you're going to be reading about. Look at some headings. Look at some, quick look at the graphs and things. Visual learners versus verbal learners. We talked about that last time. Look at the charts. Look at the pictures. Take a quick look. A couple minutes. Peruse what you're going to read. Typically in engineering, we're not talking about long reading assignments. We're reading for content, and there's really dense information. So you need to get your brain wrapped around what you're going to be reading about. And then during reading, I would recommend that you read with a paper and a pencil in hand. Take a note or two as you go. Engage those psychomotor skills. Look for big concepts. And this is a good one. Your author talks about this in the textbook. Slow down. Typically, an engineering reading assignment might only be a few pages. And the goal is not to get rid of that in a few minutes, but to think about there's a lot of dense information there. You're just going to have to slow down. You got to ponder and think as you're reading. And then after you read, probably some of the most critical things as we talk about our Bloom's taxonomy at application level. Apply what you learn by solving problems. All right, so if you just read and you don't do anything else with that information, it's probably not going to sink in. And again, studying engineering takes some effort. And the last topic I want to talk to you today about is questioning. Turns out there's skill in asking good questions. And this is some comments that I read in terms of asking questions in class, the reasons people don't. Things like, I was afraid I was going to look stupid. And I was going to write all these down, but I think it's better to just talk to you. I was afraid I was going to look stupid. I don't really want the attention. Or I was too confused to know what to ask. And if we back up a little on that one, we can think about if we've done the reading that we're actually supposed to be doing and we really thought it through, we might not be as confused. And another comment that students will sometimes say is, I didn't want to take time away from other students or from the professor in class. And I just wanted to address that in terms of the class is for you. It's not for me. So as you look to ask questions, and I know it's a little bit harder in this format to ask questions, but as you look to ask questions, it's okay. Ask questions during class when you don't understand. It's important. I was too afraid to look stupid. I always joke this way. I always say, there's no such thing as a stupid question, just stupid people who ask questions, right? And that's the joke. And it sounds ridiculous when you break that down because it is ridiculous. The real answer is there's not really a stupid question. We're trying to learn. You're trying to get up the learning curve of something, acquire new knowledge. Of course, you're probably going to have a question. And if you have that question, somebody else probably has it too. So when I talk about questioning, the most important little tidbit I can leave with you is ask them. And the kinds of questions that are good questions to ask, I want to leave you with sort of two types that are good. Convergent are good, and what that basically means that they're at about the analysis level of blooms that we talked about, where we're trying to put pieces together. Those are questions like why, how, not what's the answer, but why is that the answer? Why is that variable related to that? Why is whether it's cloudy or sunny related to how much it rains? Not specific things, but compare and contrast are great. Dr. M, could you contrast mechanical engineering with civil engineering? What's the big difference? By the end of this class, you should be able to do that. So that's one type of question, which is a good kind of question. And divergent questions are also good. And those are questions that are at sort of the design or the synthesis level, the very highest level of blooms, in my opinion. And those are questions like, imagine that, for example. And I'll put that as a ... And we could think about that. Imagine that I need to build a building, and it's in the desert, and it's at high altitude, and there's very little traffic that comes in, and the road is very small. What kind of engineer would be best for that? Imagine that. And I'm extending based on earlier knowledge, trying to extend it to new knowledge. So diverging from where I've been to new places. Converging means taking all my knowledge and trying to put it together. Right? So different kinds of questions. And I guess I'll put one more type, an evaluation question. And that's sort of at the justify level, another high level of blooms. And that would be questions that start with things like defend or judge or, Dr. M, how would you judge the solution at the Hoover Dam? Do you think that we should have put the Hoover Dam there? And if so, why? What design constraints do you think they considered? And do you think they considered the right ones? So evaluation kinds of questions. Those are the kind of questions I would be thinking about asking in class. But if you have a question, let me just leave you with this. Ask the stinking question in class. It's important. So the last topic that we want to talk about in this block is the idea of taking notes. And see if I can get my face right here in the way. Now I'll step off to the side. Note-taking. Originally, I was going to spend a lot of time talking about the proper way to take notes, or at least one good way to take notes. And I realized there's other folks that have already done this, and they've done a great job. And I'm going to leave you with these two links. I've checked them. They're active. Two good ways, and your textbook also talks about this method, the Cornell note-taking method. So you got 3 resources, 2 videos, and your textbook. And I'm going to leave you with that in terms of sometimes, if you remember back, I said that frequent assessment of knowledge, and sometimes also in ABET we talked about that we have to have the ability to do lifelong learning. And this is one of those places where I'm going to start letting you do that. Learning outside the class shows that you can teach yourself new things. It's in your textbook, 2 great locations. Get after it. So that's the end of block 3. We covered a lot of interesting things, and I enjoyed it. I hope you did as well. I'll see you next time. If I can't physically see you, I'm still hoping that you're coming around the bend, and we'll have fun the next time. Enjoy.